is going the opposite direction. And sometimes people even fight about, well, what would Jesus do in this situation? And some people, they have this one idea and other people have the other idea. And then you have people who don't even follow Jesus. Well, I think this is what Jesus means, and they're typically totally wrong in all of this. And so there's all this confusion about how do we actually follow Jesus in this world that generally isn't following Jesus? What does it look like? And so that's been our series. And actually, we got some stickers that kind of talk about this idea. Let's see here. Roy, do you want to go grab the stickers? We have all the new stickers, the little follow Jesus fish ones, and then there's the alligator ones that are out there too. All right, we got some new stickers. We'll get some of those stickers for you guys. But really, I've talked about this before, how, if you've ever gone to an aquarium, like a big fancy aquarium, they have this, a tank with all the sardines, and they're all going around in a circle, and they're all going together, going around and around and around and around and around. And there's that one that got turned backwards, and you're like, why are you going the opposite way from everyone else? That's what it can feel like following Jesus at times. And as we do this, we kind of have this idea of I'm going to go and follow Jesus because of the hope of the future that we have. And we've talked about this, that, ultimately we want to be with God forever in heaven, because, what's the opposite of that is if you aren't with God forever, you are separated from God forever, and you get to be stuck with all the consequences of sin and brokenness and hurt and shame and pain forever. And it's not good. All right. We got some stickers. Alrighty. Let's see here. Jacob, do you want to hand out some of these stickers? We've got following Jesus. You can be the little blue fish. Try to be the blue fish. Pass those out. We've got, our don't jump back in alligator stickers. Let's see here, Joseph. Come on up. Hand some of these guys out. Yep. All right. You guys get stickers. It's so calm. I handed out stickers this morning, and it was just I lost everyone for 2 minutes. It's this is nice. I appreciate you guys. It's you can make rows. You guys can, yeah, that's I do. You guys can make rows. You guys can listen and pick up a sticker at the same time. It's amazing. But where was I? We were talking about fish, and then following Jesus is yes, we have this hope, but sometimes you go, well, following Jesus isn't just for, a future thing. It also impacts our life now. And so I want us to think about this idea that I'm calling the good life. And we're going to be in 1 Peter chapter 3, verses 8 through 12. And maybe as you think of this idea of what would the good life look like, maybe you think of it would be awesome to be on the beach, and it's beautiful, and you have your own private villa, and there's a swimming pool. If you're done with the beach, you could come up and you could soak in the jacuzzi. But me, I like this a little bit more. I like the mountains. I grew up in California as my previous church. We were 10 minutes away from the beach, and I rarely ever went to the beach because this is me. I'm give me the crystal clear mountain, lake. And maybe you think of and you go, that's the good life right there. Being able to go on nice vacations and then have pretty views and scenery. Maybe you think the good life is a pile of money. Maybe that's you. You're give me the money. That's what I want. That's the good life right there, is being successful and being able to use my money to do whatever I want. Maybe you look at life and you go, it's a fancy car. That is I know I'm in the good life when I've got the fancy car. Or maybe not just that car, but maybe it's the house. Maybe you want the house, the fancy house. Or maybe you go, not necessarily all the physical things, but it's about the people that you're with. I want to have an awesome marriage and a relationship. And maybe you look at that is the good life. But I want to tell you guys right now that if you look at all these other different things, and our culture says, hey, all these different things, that's the good life. This is why you need to, hustle, don't give favors, be selfish, do things for yourself so that you can get all the different things that you want, and that's how you're going to get the good life. I want to tell you this. It's not going to lead to the good life. You see, the good life is joy. It's contentment. It's peace with God and with other people. Because the reality is, you go on a fancy vacation, but you come back. You come home. And you're with the same people that you were before. And if you weren't getting along with the people that you were before, well, guess what? When you come back, you still aren't going to be getting along with them. And there's no peace. And it's hard. And you're just like, ugh. And you look for the next escape. If you think money is going to be the thing that's going to give you that escape, well, I'm sorry. Pretty much every single lottery winner ends off worse than before. You go, oh, I just won like $100 million. Life is going to be amazing and great. I'm not going to have to worry anymore. And it typically what ends up happening, they end up broke and like alcoholic, drug addicted, no friends, homeless. They end up worse off than they did before. Because unless there's joy, unless there's contentment, unless there's peace with people and God, their money doesn't really change much. The same with the cars, same with the house. And if you put your hope in some future relationship, well, guess what? That relationship isn't going to fix you either. That doesn't make you perfect. Guess what actually happens? When you get married to someone, and I can say this because I've been married for a long time. We have other people in this room, leaders who've been married a long time, and they can tell you this too, that what your problems that you come with, and believe us, all of us come with our own set of problems. And then the perfect person that you're marrying, well, guess what? They come with a whole host of problems too. And when you get married, it seems like those problems just magnify even more so. And you have to choose to say, I'm going to love this person no matter what. You see, because marriage isn't going to fix anything either. Money, the dream job, the cars, whatever it is that our world says you have this, you're successful when you have these things, that's the good life. It all falls short. It's not going to satisfy. And what we need to learn as we follow Jesus, Jesus wants us to know these things too, is that we don't seek those things. Rather, we seek joy, contentment, and peace with God, but also with the other people that are around us. And then that's where you get to experience the good life. You see, it's not based upon the things that you have. It's about the relationships, one, that you have with God and how you have in the relationships that you have with people. And if you know anything that Jesus said, one of the things that he said, the first and most important commandment is to love God with everything that you are, your heart, mind, soul, and strength. And he says the second commandment is to love your neighbor as yourself. And so you think about this idea of peace with God and contentment and joy with God and with other people, it matches this idea of love God, love others that Jesus talks about. And so if we make that our priority as we follow Jesus and ignore the lies of the world that want to say, get this thing, do this thing, have this experience, have this much money, hustle and accomplish all these different things, then you'll have, the good life. No, you're going to miss it because Jesus is saying it's not that direction. It's about knowing me and having peace with the people around you. It's joy, it's contentment. So we enjoy the good life. And this is kind of the main thing that I want us to come away today is we enjoy the good life now when we follow Jesus' direction for living with other people. So we're going to kind of dive into that. And we're going to start with verse 8. And this is what Peter writes. He says, finally, all of you, have unity of mind. And so we can have unity. We have people in this room, they go to different schools, they have different likes, they have different abilities, they have different backgrounds, they have different experiences, they have different family lives. And guess what? We can all come together and we can have unity because we're unified in Jesus. And so we have this unity, and he says, have this unity, but have it also with sympathy. Have the ability to care about the person who's sitting next to you. Have the ability to care for the person that you don't sit next to, who's maybe across the room that you wouldn't normally talk to. have sympathy. It says have brotherly love. And I want to take a moment to think about this idea of brotherly love, because love in our culture has been so skewed. They think about it as an emotion. They think about it as this idea of, I need to accept whatever the person says about themselves. Like, oh, if I love the person, then you're going to accept whatever I do. You're going to agree with whatever I do. And sometimes love, especially in the biblical sense, love is doing that which is good for the other person. It's a choice that we make, not just an emotion that we feel. This love sometimes needs to be telling the truth, but in a kind way, to restore, to build up and say, this thing that you're doing over here, you keep on doing it, it's going to destroy you. I don't want that for you. You see, love is telling the truth to someone, even if they don't agree with it. That can be a loving thing to do. And so we're to have this love, and this love is always meant to direct people to the truth of following Jesus and what Jesus says is right and good. And so he says, then continues and goes, let's have this tender heart. There's sympathy, there's love, there's tender heart, there's humility, because we need to be reminded to be humble, because we're arrogant, we're proudful, we think about ourselves, and humility is this idea of, again, it coincides with the biblical idea of love as putting other people first. And so if we want to have the good life, if you want to have enjoyment here and now, we seek these things. This is what Peter is reminding us. He goes on and says, do not repay evil for evil or reviling for reviling. I don't know how many of you guys use the word I revile very often, but it's this idea of revenge. He says, don't get revenge when someone gets revenge against you. If someone hurts you, don't try to hurt them back. But on the contrary, bless. For to do this you were called, that you may obtain a blessing. You see, we are called to not just hurt back the people who hurt us. That's the easy thing to do. Someone hurts me, well, they said something mean behind my back, well, I'm going to say something mean about them to someone else. They broke my trust about something, they shared a picture that they weren't supposed to share, they made fun of me, well, I'm going to make fun of them, I'm going to embarrass them. Maybe they hit me, well, I'm going to hit them back even harder. And there's this escalation that takes place. And the hurt and the pain becomes bigger and bigger until it blows up, until it's completely irreparable. And so what Peter is reminding us is that we are to stop this cycle at the very beginning, because that's what ultimately Jesus did for us. You see, you didn't deserve grace. You didn't deserve mercy. You didn't deserve someone, taking the place and the punishment for you. But because Jesus loved you, he says, I'm going to do it anyway. Not because you deserve God's grace, deserve someone dying in your place. That's an entitlement. That's pride that speaks there. And always have this humility, recognizing that God did it because he loved us. He saved us. And he says, bless instead. So when the person hurts you, you bless them back. Because that's what Jesus did. And he says, when you do that, guess what? Life is better. It says you get a blessing. You may obtain a blessing. But life is better. And we're going to kind of dive into that a little bit. When we choose to follow the way that God kind of made things to work, life works better. And so what I want us to see with this idea of, sympathy and brotherly love and care and choosing to not hurt back the people who hurt us, to not get revenge, what Peter's reminding us is that we're called to show care for other people, even when they don't show that same care towards us. I've said this multiple times throughout this series. This is hard. Because as you think about that, go back to that fishbowl where all the sardines, they're all swimming around in a circle, all the same direction. For that one fish going the opposite direction, it's hard. He runs into people. The current's going the opposite way. He's like fighting everything. And it's a hard thing to do, to go against the culture, the current of our culture that says, they deserve to get hurt back. It's easy to say, no, think about yourself and, care for yourself and push other people down in the process. It's easy to do those things because our culture pushes us that way. And we see it modeled around us through everything and everyone, from our shows and our music to even our own parents, because guess what? They're sinful too, and they make mistakes. But we have to swim against that current and say, yes, I'm going to follow Jesus, and I'm going to show love and care, because the good life isn't all the things. It's joy, it's contentment, it's peace with God and others. So as we follow Jesus in a world that doesn't, this is where we get to enjoy the good life. And so what Peter then does is he goes and he says, this isn't just my idea. He goes and he quotes the Old Testament. He quotes a psalm. And now most of the Psalms were all written by David, who is the king over Israel. And he had some ups and downs in his life. He had some, major victories. He had some horrible defeats and shame and guilt in the process. He's had all sorts of things. And he wrote songs about all the different experiences that he had. And so this is one of the Psalms that he wrote. And so Peter is quoting one of them. And this is what Peter quotes from the Psalms. He says, whoever desires to love life and see good days. Now, who wants to have a life that they enjoy and love and have good days? Anyone? Who wants that? We all want that. Yeah, And so, like earlier, we might say, we would like to have the nice vacation, the fancy car, an awesome relationship and enough money to do the things that we want. We want to see all those good things. And he says, if you want that, it's not hustle harder. It's not get a second job. It's none of those things that our culture says. He says, no. Let him keep his tongue from evil and his lips from deceit. Wait, what? How's that going to help me? Well, you're choosing to follow Jesus. David didn't know that quite yet when he was writing this, but Peter is connecting the dots for us. And he says, well, we're being like Jesus. We're following him. And when we treat the people around us well, it makes life better. It makes life easier. And you go, well, wouldn't it, Stephen, sometimes it's easier to lie. Yeah, you're right. It is easier to lie in the moment and try to shift blame and not have the blame fall on us. It's easier to try to hide the thing and make sure that other people don't see that it happened. But it's easy in the moment, but only for that moment. You see, for the rest of the time, it's hard because you have to live with the consequences of the fact that you lose, trust with your friends or your parents, and they're not sure if they're able to trust you because they see the different lies and the deceit that's going on. It's easy in the moment to say a mean thing back to the person who was mean to us. It's easy. But in the long run, it makes it hard. You see, following Jesus is about doing the hard thing in the moment. And when you do the hard thing in the moment, like I said, it makes the rest easier. So some of you guys do sports. And I grew up and I did a whole bunch of different sports. And when I did basketball, our coach had us do what we called liners. Some of you guys might know these as suicides. No. What? No. You love them. All right. Okay. All right. Did you love them the first time you had to do them? After off season and then you come back and you got the suicides where you have to sprint and it's the quick turnaround and you have to do it and you have to go until you are so tired that you're falling over and you feel like throwing up. Who's loving that? Other than Nathaniel, who is, he might be the exception. It stinks. Exactly. It's hard in the moment. But does it make the game easier? Yes, it makes the game easier. You see, when we choose to follow Jesus in a world that doesn't, in that moment where we have to go, I want to repay this person because they said this mean thing about me and they hurt me and I want to get back with them. It's hard in the moment to not hurt them back and to say, no, I'm going to follow Jesus. I'm going to show love to them even though they don't deserve it in this moment. It's hard now, but guess what? It makes the rest of the life easier. Just like those liners and suicides do. So if you desire love and you seek good days, let him keep your tongue from speaking evil and your lips from deceit. Because the relationships that you're going to have with the people around you is going to be so much better, and you're going to have peace with the people around you, and you're going to be able to have joy and contentment. And he continues on, he says, don't just, not just the words that you say, but the things that you see. Let him turn away from evil and do good. You see, there's this turning away from evil and doing good, and then he goes on and says, let him seek peace and pursue it. And what Hebrew poetry kind of does is it kind of builds on itself. And he says, well, here, let me explain this idea. By turning away from evil and doing good, that is the act of how we pursue peace and how we seek peace. They're connected ideas. When you say, I'm not going to do this evil thing, guess what? You're actively building peace. When you're actively saying, yes, I'm not going to say something mean, I'm going to turn away from this, deceitful thing that I could say, this hurtful thing that I could say, guess what? You're actively seeking peace and pursuing it. And this is how we enjoy the good life. This is the good days that David talks about. And David continues as, Peter is still quoting him. He says, for the eyes of the Lord are on the righteous. God sees you. When you're doing what is good, he sees you. And he says, his ears are open to you. And he's looking on you and he goes, yes, you're getting it. And he says, but the face of the Lord is against those who do evil. And the way we see this play out in life is that life is better when we use our words to build others up rather than to tear others down. Same with our actions. And God sees it. And the way that God kind of made the world and just how we as people, think and react, when we do what God says is right, things generally just go better. When we say, when God says, love your spouse, and I know you guys aren't married, but you can look at all of your parents' lives and maybe your friends and their parents. When we don't do that one thing, does it cause problems? I'm seeing a lot of nodding heads. Yes. You guys can think about maybe your own parents, maybe the friends that you have. When two people who are married who don't love each other and they choose to be selfish in the process, does it cause hurt and pain? We all deal with the consequences of that. There's this one simple thing, love your spouse. Be faithful to your spouse. How much evil in the world could be done away with if we were able to simply follow that one commandment? And when we lie, it breaks trust, hurts relationships. And if you tell the truth, yes, it might be hard in that moment, but people are going to trust you. People are going to respect you. Even though you made a mistake, they're more apt to show forgiveness and be able to move on and be able to make things better because you're honest. But someone who's a liar, they can't trust, no one wants to be with them. No one wants to maintain a relationship with that person. I was looking at some different statistics, and one of the things that it said was that if you want to avoid poverty, do this. Graduate, at least this is for the United States. Graduate from high school, and then if you have kids after you're married. If you do those things in that order, high school, married, kids, the likelihood of you being in poverty is practically zero. But if you mess that up, the likelihood of poverty in your life and that family is astronomical. Because what we see is people, even if they're not Christians, follow God's design of marriage, then kids, especially that part. It makes such a huge, huge difference. These are not Christian people who are figuring this out. These are secular, socioeconomic people who are just analyzing, look at this thing, is like, hey, well, maybe this is kind of important. And so this is the idea of God, how God made the universe to work, is when we follow him, life is better. In that moment, it might be hard, but it makes life easy in the long run. Because that's how God created the world. He created the world in a way that when you follow what he says is right and good, life will be good. It's not a guarantee that you're going to have the car, the money, the house, the vacations. But when you follow Jesus, you can have joy. You can have contentment with all the different things that God has blessed you with. Whether it's a big house or a small house. Whether it's a fancy car or a car that barely gets you from A to Z. We can have joy. We can have contentment. But most importantly, we have peace with God when we follow him. And when we follow his design for the relationships that we have peace with other people. And those relationships with other people, those are the things that's going to help us have that joy, have that contentment. Because the good life isn't about the things that we have. It's about the relationship with God and how we have or let that infect the relationships that we have with other people. So in a world that doesn't follow Jesus, if you want to enjoy the good days, the good life, follow God's direction. It's hard in the moment, but it makes the long run easy. Don't fall for the lie that says, oh, it's going to be easy now and easy later, because sin never works that way. It may be easy now, but it's always hard later. So don't fall for the trap of that sin and the temptation. Seek God, even in a world that doesn't, and where we can find joy, contentment, and peace. I'm going to pray for us, and then we get to head to our breakouts, and we can dive into this a little bit more. All right? Heavenly Father, we thank you for tonight. And I know for so many of us, as even me, I still look and go, well, how can I secure my future? And we're concerned about money and finances and relationships and things that we have, and those are important, but help us, God, to see that they aren't the most important thing. Having peace with you, joy and contentment with you and with the people around us is the most important thing. Let us not get pulled away by temptation that says, oh, this is going to be easy, easy, easy. But let us do the hard thing of following you, knowing that you bring good days. And as we go into our discussion, God, help us to have a good time of discussion. Help us to be real. Help us to be honest with another. And help us, God, to encourage one another to follow you. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.